The Hidden Brain, published in May 2023, the author of this book is Shankar Vedantam. He has worked as a part-time lecturer at Harvard University and Columbia University. At the same time, he is also the host of NPR's popular show Hidden Brain. The name of the show and this book are the same. In this book, the author explores how our unconscious mind controls our behavior. We usually think that our thoughts are under our control and that our actions are deliberate decisions we make after careful consideration. But that's not always true. Sometimes what we think is one thing, but what we do is another. Later on, we can't even explain why we said something or did something in a certain way. We've all had experiences like this before, losing temper with loved ones or making sarcastic jokes to friends only to regret it later on. However, it may not entirely be your fault because it could be due to your hidden brain at work. Hidden brain is a term coined by the author which refers to those parts of our brains beyond conscious control that influence our thoughts and behaviors. Our brain can be divided into two parts, conscious brain and hidden brain. The conscious brain consists of neural activities that produce consciousness, while hidden brain refers to those factors outside of consciousness control range within us which affect both thought processes and behavior patterns. Simply put, these factors include unconscious or subconscious elements hiding beneath layers upon layers of neurons below cortical surfaces responsible for regulating basic functions such as breathing or turning over during sleep. However, they also operate outside awareness levels in higher cortical areas such as reading comprehension or mathematical calculations. This means some high-level thinking activities can also be influenced by hidden brains, just like when I decide to invest money in a stock, it might not necessarily have been solely my conscious decision. Psychologists have conducted a study on the New York Stock Exchange. They tracked 10 stocks with easy-to-read names and 10 stocks with difficult-to-read names. The results showed that on the first day of listing, companies with easier-to-read names performed better than those with harder-to-read names by 11.2%. Scholars call this phenomenon the fluency effect. If you ask investors about it, they are not even aware of how stock names affect their decisions. For our unconscious mind, easy-to-read names bring comfort, which means safety, and this unconsciously affects investor decisions. In fact, many complex and important decisions are influenced by our unconscious mind without us realizing it. Our unconscious mind can create biases that lead to serious misjudgments without us even knowing it, from small arguments between friends to terrorist attacks and genocide. The book discusses many real-life cases where hidden brain plays a role in our daily lives in small ways at first, but then leads to bigger problems later on. It is crucial to understand the power of the unconscious mind because we often remain unaware of its influence. Our hidden brain can cause unintentional biases that may result in severe misjudgments without us being aware of them. While understanding these effects is essential, we must also learn how to be more vigilant against them. The book has two parts, firstly discussing how hidden brain benefits us and why it's necessary despite being uncontrollable, secondly exploring its negative effects such as creating unintentional biases leading to misjudgments and what we can do about them. We will focus on two aspects today: intimate relationships and social life. In intimate relationships, there is a paradoxical phenomenon where if someone achieves something outside your area of interest or expertise, you would appreciate their success genuinely. However, if someone close to you achieves something similar within your field or area of expertise, jealousy might arise. The closer the relationship, the stronger the jealousy. A social psychologist studied this psychological conflict and found that when one partner in a relationship succeeds in another's professional field, resentment arises. In his experiment, some people even deliberately hindered their partner's success despite claiming to be happy for them during interviews. They couldn't explain why they felt this way or why they acted as such. This phenomenon doesn't only occur between partners and friends but also within father-son relationships. If both are scientists in the same field, then as the son becomes more successful, their relationship becomes more distant. However, if they work in different fields, then as the son becomes more successful, their bond grows stronger. Our hidden brain recognizes competition might threaten intimate relationships and thus creates protective measures by unconsciously dividing complementary areas of interest between partners, pushing them towards cooperation instead of competition. For example, John is good at clinical problems while Jane excels at experimental science, therefore, they divide tasks accordingly to avoid encroaching on each other's strengths. In conclusion, our hidden brain always prioritizes itself over others and perceives others' success as a threat to its own well-being, which can lead to damaging intimate relationships. However, it can also create intricate webs of dependence that make these bonds stronger than ever before. Apart from intimate relationships, our hidden brain plays an important role in our social lives too. In this book, the author presents a somewhat counterintuitive viewpoint that our adherence to laws and social morals is not only based on consciousness but also on our unconsciousness. A researcher once conducted an experiment in a tea room of an office where there was a beverage cabinet containing tea, coffee, and milk with a notice posted at eye level indicating their prices. Employees were expected to pay for their drinks by putting money into the collection box. However, the cabinet was located in a blind spot where employees could take beverages without paying or being detected. The researcher spent 10 weeks tracking the weekly sales of milk and counting the money collected from the box without informing any employee about it. According to common sense, there should have been similar amounts of money collected every week. However, he found out that during odd-numbered weeks, 3 times more money was collected than during even-numbered weeks. The reason behind this difference was simple: he secretly replaced the small decorative picture at the top of the notice with different photos of flowers during even and odd-numbered weeks respectively. During odd-numbered weeks, when pictures of eyes staring back at them were displayed on top of notices above beverages prices, people's honesty levels increased significantly compared to those who saw flower photos during even-numbered weeks. The researcher asked employees if they had noticed any changes in pictures each week, however none had realized it as they focused solely on what they wanted rather than noticing peripheral vision details around them. People tend to concentrate only on things directly related to them while ignoring other aspects surrounding them unless something catches their attention. We hope nothing important happens around us, however if something does happen we want notification immediately so we can react accordingly. When our conscious brain focuses entirely on current tasks or situations before us, then our unconscious mind remains vigilant towards peripheral vision details without requiring conscious intervention. Our unconscious mind reacts directly to what it sees without reporting back to our conscious brain. Although the unconscious mind saw pictures on notices, its analysis lacked precision and could not distinguish between photos and real eyes. However, it reminded employees to follow rules as if they were being monitored. This experiment alone is insufficient evidence for the author's viewpoint that we adhere to ethical morals because of our unconsciousness. To prove this point, we need to see what would happen if we lost our unconsciousness entirely. There is a type of disease called frontotemporal dementia where patients' brains' frontal and temporal lobes shrink, affecting areas regulating social behavior in particular. The frontal and temporal lobes tell us whether crossing over a table full of people while reaching out for food is polite or how to greet unfamiliar people properly. They also inform us whether someone at a bar who appears to be looking at us is scanning the room or intentionally staring at us. Patients with frontotemporal dementia suddenly gain extremely sharp observation and analytical abilities in mathematics or physics but can no longer understand dining etiquette, social norms, etc., which are essential for integrating into society. The frontal and temporal lobes help us understand how we should respond appropriately in different situations by helping us adapt ourselves according to various relationships around us. However, patients with frontotemporal dementia cannot comprehend these invisible rules. After contracting this disease, their emotions become very indifferent towards others, making them say things like "you're ugly" or "you're fat" directly facing someone else without any empathy whatsoever. When they enter stores seeing something they want, they will take it immediately without considering consequences, since they do not care about right from wrong anymore, even though they know what's right from wrong deep down inside themselves. Therefore, as law-abiding citizens who can integrate well into society, understanding social norms plays an important role. However, research on brain diseases shows that ethics morals are not only passed down through legal codes and social norms but also through algorithms in our unconsciousness that have been established during the evolution of human society. Creating this well-ordered society is not only due to our conscious brain but also because of our unconscious mind. As we discussed earlier, the two essential aspects of the unconscious mind for us are, first, it helps us maintain stable intimate relationships, second, it helps us adapt ourselves according to various relationships around us. Next, we will discuss the negative effects of the unconscious mind. In daily life, what is hidden from us and brings us more are actually some unconscious biases. Each of us thinks that our values are correct, without prejudice or discrimination. We also know how to speak publicly. Why do people still say stupid things in front of the camera and make mistakes that seem very foolish to us? Shouldn't they be more reasonable and aware of their words? In fact, whether it is a 6-year-old child or a 30-year-old adult, there will be unconscious bias, and as we age, our unconscious bias will not decrease. The reason why we become more tolerant is because our consciousness has increased its ability to resist bias. Adults consciously reject stereotypes and suppress bad associations hidden in their minds because they know that generalizing a group is foolish behavior. When adults need to express their views clearly, their consciousness talks with the hidden brain about what to say. If consciousness is the pilot on an island, then the hidden brain is like autopilot on an airplane. Unless the pilot loses focus, he does not need to activate autopilot, but when under pressure his ability to hide it weakens, so we can observe attitudes that someone usually hides. This is why people tend to say stupid things when facing spotlights and cameras. We usually think that older people have deeper prejudices than younger ones for this reason. On one hand, their ability to control their brains weakens, which makes them more likely show prejudice. On the other hand, during times when older generations grew up, expressing prejudices was normal, even considered standard, so they realized suppressing prejudice was difficult. In these situations where people cannot control their subconsciousness, it may be due being young, immature, or nervous, out of control at times, but could also be due aging, brain function decline. In all these cases, people are easily influenced by unconscious biases and hiding brains. This explains why sometimes you ask someone who seems very reasonable why he said something wrong, only to find out that he himself is confused. This may not be because he is lying, but because he himself did not realize that his hidden brain does have some unconscious bias. If the hidden brain can bring us some unconscious biases in daily life, then in certain special situations it may cause us to make very serious misjudgments. Today we will talk about a special situation: disaster evacuation. In this book, the author tells of a strange incident during the 9/11 terrorist attack on the World Trade Center. There was an investment bank called KBW located on floors 88 and 89 of South Tower. During this terrorist attack, almost all employees on floor 88 successfully evacuated, while all employees on floor 89 died. Why did such a difference occur within one company? When the first hijacked plane hit North Tower, employees from both floors experienced similar panic. They heard loud explosions coming from North Tower and saw thick smoke, but no one knew what had happened or what to do next. The building's broadcast told South Tower employees to stay put and not risk evacuating so as not to be hit by debris falling from North Tower, which sounded reasonable at that time, but no one knew that after only 16 minutes later another hijacked plane would crash into their own South Tower where KBW was located. Employees on floor 88 immediately rushed down after hearing the first explosion, while those on floor 89 stayed in their seats. Now it seems rushing downstairs immediately was indeed correct choice, but actually key issue wasn't whether staff made right decisions between two floors, rather every person on each floor made nearly same decision, so why were there different outcomes? But aren't people making judgments for themselves? If everyone makes their own judgment whether to leave or stay, shouldn't we see relatively average results between two floors? Sociological research related with disaster evacuation shows when disasters happen, people unconsciously give decision-making power over to groups. In times of crisis, people unconsciously want to reach a consensus with those around them. What is happening now? What should we do next? This is because when facing serious threats, our hidden brain will produce a strong driving force hoping to obtain a common explanation for what is happening because group consensus can bring comfort. From the perspective of human evolution, following the crowd is usually safe, but sometimes it backfires, especially in modern disaster scenarios where group comfort often puts individuals in danger because modern threats are very complex and there may be no one in the entire group who knows exactly what happened. Group comfort brings anxiety while seeking solutions on your own makes people anxious, which is actually correct response during disasters. False comfort can be fatal. Reviewing KBW in the 9/11 attacks, the only difference between floors 88 and 89 was that when the first explosion occurred, a man named Aguiar on floor 88 quickly reacted by running around the entire floor shouting for people to evacuate immediately. He didn't even know there was a second plane coming, but his firm call to evacuate made everyone follow suit. On floor 89, however, no one did this and instead they all chose to stay put and look at each other. We usually assume that when an alarm goes off in a workplace people will immediately leave, but in reality their first reaction is to look at others. People who work alone are faster than those who work collectively because what really matters is the size of the group consensus, which determines how much time is wasted during evacuation. After disasters occur, we always ask how many escape routes were available or if clear signs were posted or if sufficient disaster drills had been conducted. These are all important factors, but they don't solve for hidden biases during disasters. However, understanding this can help us better educate ourselves about disaster prevention, firstly by warning people not to give decision-making power over to groups as following blindly isn't always wise. Secondly, offices with more employees should conduct more disaster drills than those with fewer employees. Now let's take a look at extremist terrorists who carry out such acts of terror. Has their thinking also been unconsciously influenced? We usually think that religious beliefs motivate extremists, but research shows that although their actions often bear religious symbols, many suicide bombers have no religious background whatsoever. Some don't believe in religion or even God, while others suffer from mental disorders less frequently than average individuals do, so it's not just brainwashing either. So how do we explain their behavior logically? In fact, these attackers are unconsciously influenced by small group psychology without realizing it themselves. The commonality among extremists isn't religion or specific political ideologies, but rather small group psychology. They usually belong to a small group that is very exclusive, and this exclusivity is one of the core attractions of the group. Opportunities to enter such groups are limited, which confirms their beliefs. These people form a small brotherhood where they act together, fantasize together, live together, and even marry each other's sisters. They become each other's universe, and this kind of small group mentality blocks out the outside world. In daily life, we come into contact with all kinds of people from diverse cultures, so we don't see things from just one perspective, but extremist terrorist small group mentality isn't like that. They have gone through strict screening processes and share common worldviews within their own little universes, which makes them lose touch with normal reality. For liver and gallbladder brothers, for proving themselves in the group, or for letting these so-called small groups survive, extremists voluntarily do those terrible things that harm others without being able to explain why afterwards. Our hidden brain seeks recognition and meaning, which gives us motivation to strive hard and prove ourselves unique at an unconscious level. Many people have experienced psychological pressure from small groups during school days or in companies where they've done something against their will because of it. For extremists, however, this kind of thinking has evolved into extreme behavior due to the influence of small group psychology without realizing it themselves. We may feel helpless after hearing about all these negative effects caused by our hidden brains, but actually there is a method called unconscious consciousness in psychoanalysis, which means exploring our own thoughts and conflicts hidden in our unconsciousness, then expressing them verbally or writing them down on paper. When you unconsciously say something biased, then realize it wasn't appropriate, you can ask yourself why you had such thoughts hiding inside your subconsciousness. Was it related to past experiences or influenced by friends around you? This provides us with opportunities for self-awareness reflection as well as understanding more about the logic behind our own thoughts and behaviors. Although this book talks about neuroscience and unconsciousness, it's not a failure because unconscious consciousness is slowly helping us understand more about the black box of our brains. Understanding hidden biases can help us gain more autonomy in life by realizing and resisting those incomprehensible influences from our hidden brain. In daily life, rationality is the only rock we have to resist waves of unconscious bias. It's our lighthouse as well as our lifesaver. So that concludes the essence of this book. You can also click on the transcript below for full text and mind maps prepared for you, or share this free book with your friends by clicking on the share button in the upper right corner. Congratulations on finishing another audiobook.